Our border is in crisis. Our national security has been at risk ever since the Biden administration took office. And this president has done more to damage and destroy our national security at the border than every other fucking president in the history of our country combined.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic. And we are Unapologetically Outspoken. Okay, Stephanie, I don't know if you saw this, but last week, KJP gave one of her infamous press conferences. And this one was responding to polls that were showing like most Americans think Biden is too old to run for re-election. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, because she made what is probably her most ridiculous fucking statement ever, which that's like saying a lot. And she was alluding to the fact that Biden has boundless energy. And she said, quote, "It is hard for us to keep up with this president who is constantly working every day to get things done." Like, I literally threw up in my mouth when she said that, because the only thing that Biden is constantly working at is sabotaging our country and trying not to like fall or wander off the stage in a fucking dementia haze when he's giving a press conference.
Or trying not to shit his pants, like literally.
Oh,
I mean, that's just like, it's just laughable at this point. Like, no one is buying this. I'm sorry. Like, no one is buying that. He's just working so hard every day. I found an article from the Washington Post, which aren't they like a super liberal article? Or I mean, magazine or whatever, newspaper.
I don't think so, because I find a lot on there that's
Oh,
actually
okay. So
like
maybe they're more conservative. Well, they say that he spent 382 days or 40% of his presidency on vacation. Like, that's, for me, that just seems so hard to even imagine. I mean, you think about like most people get what, 2 weeks of vacation in a year? And then during the worst fire in our nation's history, he vacationed 4 times, right?
Yep.
3, 4 times, something like that. Like, he's acting like someone who's retired instead of someone who's running the country. And speaking of old people, Tara, did you see Mitch McConnell froze up again when they asked him if he's going to like run for re-election?
Yeah, like his bot battery ran down or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's so creepy. Super
Yep.
creepy. He just like was like staring into space and it's like, is he there? Like what? It was really creepy. And it just reaffirmed that we need term limits. Like the average age of senators in Congress is 63. Like there's a bunch of people
Yeah.
much older than that. And then the House is not much farther off. The average age for the House is 58. It's like, retire these fucking lifelong politicians. I don't know why we still are without term limits.
I don't understand either, because if you look at a lot of other government jobs, there are mandatory retirement ages, and it's
Yeah.
usually somewhere 55, 60. And so it's absolutely insane. But I also wanted to mention that like during this same press conference, they were asking KJP about the border crisis. And once again, absolutely asinine response. She said, quote, "The president has done more to secure the border, to deal with this issue of immigration than anybody else. He really has." Stephanie, like, how the fuck does she sleep at night? How do any of these people in this administration sleep at night? Because the level of not just nonsense, but evil and lies that comes from this administration is literally perverse. Like, our border is in crisis. Our national security has been at risk ever since the Biden administration took office. And this president has done more to damage and destroy our national security at the border than every other fucking president in the history of our country combined. And the fact that, you know, he can get up there with the stupid smirk on his face, and KJP can spout this nonsense, and Kamala, the supposed border czar, can just stand up there and laugh and talk about buses. And like every other representative in this administration that stands in front of a podium, they all just blatantly lie to the American people every single fucking day. And it blows my mind. Like, sometimes I don't even want to know what's being said, because it is so unbelievable and the lies are so out of control that it makes me angry. Well, I'm angry. We noticed that on the podcast a lot. But I feel like I'm living in the fucking Twilight Zone. And I just don't understand how karma hasn't struck all of these people by lightning.
I know. I quit watching the press conferences because she makes me so livid, because she does just
Yeah.
lie through her teeth and has absolutely no shame. But the reason that they can all sleep at night is because they have no conscience. Like, if you have no conscience, you don't care. Like, you don't feel bad if you don't have any moral grounding. They've made a living off of lying. Like, Joe Biden has built his career off of lying. And I'm sorry, but if he's done more to secure the border, then why are illegal crossings at an all-time high? Makes no
Exactly.
sense.
And yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about right now, because every single move that Biden has made to quote secure the border has actually been the opposite. You know, we talked last week, I think, about how he's basically thwarted every effort by Texas to construct a border wall, including selling off border wall materials instead of letting Texas use them. And then he even sued the state of Texas for putting up the makeshift buoy wall in the Rio Grande. And then a few days ago, Arizona just agreed to pay the Biden administration $2.1 million as part of a settlement for a lawsuit that the DOJ filed against Arizona for their attempts at making a makeshift wall out of shipping containers at the Arizona-Mexico border. And so these moves by the Biden administration, in my mind, are the exact opposite of border security.
Right. And I'm sure that every cent of that $2 million is going to go towards housing illegal immigrants instead of helping the people in Maui that lost their homes along with everything they owned. And
Yep.
speaking of government lawsuits, have you heard about this whole lawsuit against Elon Musk by the DOJ?
No.
This is crazy. Okay, so the DOJ is suing Elon Musk's SpaceX because he's not hiring enough refugees and asylees,
What?
literally. So the lawsuit cited a June 2020 post on X, formerly Twitter, by Musk, where he let his 36 million followers at the time know that, quote, U.S. law requires at least a green card to be hired at SpaceX, as rockets are advanced weapons technology, end quote. Seems reasonable that you would want someone with at least a green card at the very least.
Yeah.
U.S. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark, who heads the Justice Department's Office of Civil Rights, says, quote, our investigation found that SpaceX failed to fairly consider or hire asylees and refugees because of their citizenship status and imposed what amounted to a ban on their hire regardless of their qualification in violation of federal law, end quote. So
Oh my God.
this lawsuit wants Elon Musk not only to start hiring asylees and refugees in lieu of American citizens, but wants him to back pay the asylees and refugees that weren't considered for these positions. And I'm sorry.
Wait, this is like reparations
Yes.
for the illegal people that are in our country?
Yeah. And I mean, yes. And that's the thing. They're not talking about legal immigrants. They're talking about people who hopped the fucking border. Why the hell would we want asylees and refugees that probably were not thoroughly vetted working on rockets? You know, like, why are we mad that he's hiring American citizens for these jobs? That should be what we want, is American citizens being hired for those types of jobs. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this picture? You know, it's like the typical Biden administration that puts Americans last and then goes and attacks anyone that speaks out against the Biden regime.
Yeah, that I'm sorry, this shit is just like it's beyond out of control. And like we've done, I don't know, countless episodes on this podcast where we've talked about the border, and we've interviewed some incredible ex-federal agents who gave their firsthand accounts of their experiences at the border. And look, the numbers don't lie, or like maybe they do, because the numbers are being reported by federal agencies under the thumb of the Biden administration. But even so, those numbers are really fucking high. And so if the numbers reported are true, It's astronomical. And I want to talk about some of these recent numbers because it's just the lies with the Biden administration talking about securing the border and illegal crossings being at a low is bullshit. You know, there was a New York Post article that came out a couple days ago by Mark Krikorian, and he's the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies. And he was talking about how the Washington Post recently reported that Border Patrol arrests of border jumpers climbed more than 30% in August. And that was on top of the 30% plus increase that occurred in July that we talked about a few weeks ago. And this is an average of about 6,000 illegal border crossings a day. That's not contacts. That's the fucking illegal crossings. And the Epic Times also reported over the weekend that the Customs and Border Patrol released data on August 18th that showed that Border Patrol recorded 132,652 encounters between the ports of entry along the border in July. This is more than 32,000 more encounters than they had in June, because in June they reported 99,545 encounters, which is still fucking insane. And now Customs and Border Patrol agents are using this app, and it allows migrants to make appointments at land crossings with Mexico. So basically, they book an appointment through this app, and then they show up to whatever US port of entry, and then it allows them to bypass the southern border and directly enter the US through one of these ports of entry. And Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration back in May when this all came about, because he said it encourages illegal immigration because the app can't verify that an illegal migrant would qualify for an exemption that would like prevent them from being deported. And he said, quote, the Biden administration deliberately conceived of this phone app with the goal of illegally pre-approving more foreign aliens to enter the country and go where they please once they arrive.
Well, Tara, I mean, they have to crank up the numbers prior to the election so they can, secure their Democratic vote. So, I mean, it makes sense that the numbers are going up.
Exactly. But here's more fucking bullshit. According to CBS News, leaked numbers from the Border Patrol indicate that the United States has carried out fewer than 100 deportations under the program that the Biden administration set up in May to deter unlawful entries by migrant families. And this is clearly a fraction of the tens of thousands of families that are processed by border agents during that period. And then meanwhile, an article came out in the Daily Caller over the weekend that talked about how, and this is fucking scary, right? Customs and Border Patrol has flagged 74,904 illegal migrants for potentially posing risk to national security between October of 2022 and August of 2023. And they referred to these migrants as SIA, or special interest aliens. So what is an SIA? Well, according to the Department of Homeland Security definition, an SIA is, quote, a non-US person who, based on analysis of travel patterns, potentially poses a national security risk to the United States or its interests. Often such individuals or groups are employing travel patterns known or evaluated to possibly have a nexus to terrorism. And according to this Daily Caller article, the FBI is currently searching for a group of more than a dozen Uzbekistan migrants that federal authorities released into the country after they used an ISIS-tied smuggler to get across the southern border illegally. So I looked up the details of this because I wanted to know, when this happened. And I found another article saying that CNN reported last Tuesday that this group of more than 12 Uzbekistan migrants were permitted to enter the United States after seeking asylum earlier this year, even though their smuggler was believed to be an independent ISIS contractor. And then all of a sudden, this intelligence report comes out about a human smuggling network that's working to facilitate travel of Uzbek nationals to the US. And apparently this intelligence report was important enough that it resulted in an urgent meeting being held by national security officials and the Biden administration this past Tuesday. And now they're looking for these guys. Like, what the fuck?
why would they be surprised when you have millions of
Right.
people coming in illegally? Like, obviously, you're going to have people that have been trying to come over here for a long time and do no good. And like, have we not learned from 9/11? It takes a handful of people to fucking destroy something. And,
Mhm.
my whole thing too is like, think about all the things that we have reported on, from the train derailments to the farms blowing up to what's happening in Maui. And, we kind of assume like, okay, well, maybe it's our own government. What if these are all terrorist attacks from the people who have come over and built these small armies? Maybe they're living on the land that China's bought. Who knows? Like, how do we know that this isn't already a huge threat that's taking place and costing lives? We don't know.
No, you're absolutely right. We have no idea. And we've talked before about all of the what single Chinese males,
Yeah.
military age males that were coming in. You have all of these, same thing coming from I don't know how many different countries of
Mhm.
these like military age males, tons and tons and tons of males coming in alone. Yeah,
Right.
are there families coming over? Yes, but you're not hearing about that as much as you're hearing about these military aged men coming over and all of these not mafia, what's the word I'm looking for? The cartels and
Mhm.
invisibly bringing weapons over the border, like we talked about last week. I mean, like, it's fucking scary where these people are ending up. Nobody fucking knows. And aside from just the border issue, like, I have to comment on the latest in the saga of all the ludicrous ways that New York is handling their end of the migrant crisis. Uh, you know, being a sanctuary city, it's basically a free for all, right? And the latest move that they're making is showcasing how New York City clearly does not give a fuck about their own residents, because now homeless families are being kicked out of shelters in New York City on less than a day's notice to make room for new asylum seekers. And according to the BBC News New York, parents and kids who have been living in this family shelter in the Bronx for the past few months were told on Friday with no notice to pack up and get out to make room for incoming migrants. And supposedly the city is going to be putting these people up in hotels. Like, Stephanie, do they even have vacant hotels in NYC at this point? Because haven't they like taken over all the hotels to house migrants at this point?
Right. And, they're kicking out families, American families, to probably put in single men that are
Yeah.
migrants
Yeah.
again.
And
So
we've
it's
already
like they act like they care about families. They don't care about American families.
No, and we've already talked about how they've displaced veterans. And, Mayor Adams continues to cry on a daily basis about the influx of migrants in New York City. But your own policies are to blame. Like, you want to be a sanctuary city, then you deal with the fucking consequences. It's like trying to keep flies out of your house, but you have all the windows and the doors open. Like, they're gonna keep fucking showing up. And so
Yeah.
you get what you put in place.
Well, it's gotten so bad. Even the New York Times is reporting how the Democrats can't handle these sanctuary city policies that were put in place decades ago. And the article states that the New York is housing roughly 59,000 asylum seekers a night, every night, because of a unique right to shelter mandate that dates back decades and is preparing to enroll about 19,000 migrant children in public schools this fall. And I can imagine this is going to be a huge problem for them with suburban moms who historically voted blue. The article cited a poll from Siena College, and it found that 82% of registered voters viewed the influx as a serious problem, and a majority said that the state has already done enough for the asylum seekers and should focus on slowing down their arrivals. And then that same poll showed that nearly every major Democrat, including Biden, is losing now with suburban voters. And they should be, because this is fucking insane. I wouldn't want a bunch of illegal migrants in my kids' schools taking up space from American families that need shelter, not knowing who these people are. Again, these can be single men who are like terrorists for all we know. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like a good majority of these suburban voters voted for these policies in the
Yeah,
first place.
you get
They
what you
wanted
vote for.
open borders. Yeah, they wanted New York City to be a sanctuary city. And so it's that concept of it's fine until it's in my own backyard. Well, it's not fine because it shouldn't be in Texas's backyard. It shouldn't be in Arizona's backyard or Florida's backyard or fucking Wisconsin's backyard. It shouldn't be in any fucking United States backyard. Like
Yeah.
this is a policy that should apply to our United States border. And so you voted for this shit and now you're dealing with the consequences.
But yeah, like this is working though. Sending them to
Yeah.
New York City is working because until then, they kept ignoring the problem, saying it doesn't exist. Literally, people were saying that the whole thing was made up. So they need to
Yeah.
keep doing that and they need to start sending them to, LA and San Francisco and Portland and, all these other cities as well, because that until it's in their backyard, like you said, they don't care and they won't do anything. So New York, it's helping. They're waking up. They're realizing this is a bad deal, but they need to start doing it with other Democrat-led cities as well, so that they can't continue ignoring the problem too.
Yep.
Oh, good old Biden regime, just making America worse by the day.
America last.
America last. Yeah, that's right. So, all right. Well, that's it for today. We will see everyone back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in. If you're sick of all the crazy shit going on in our country and you want to express your support and patriotism for the show, head on over to our Etsy store at UO Patriot Chicks and check out our new stickers. The link can also be found on our website. If you love the show and you want exclusive episodes, support the podcast and join the conversation by becoming a member of our Patreon community. We'll be posting weekly member-only podcast episodes and content that isn't available on the weekly podcast. Every Patreon member will also get a free Unapologetically Outspoken sticker and updates about our new sticker release before they're made public. And be sure to follow us on TikTok at Unapologetically Outspoken. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review the podcast. The more you support us, the more people we can reach. So help us spread the word.